Chapter 37, The Squirrel. A small squirrel was scurrying through the garden. Brightbill had never seen her before. He peered out from the nest and watched her bounce across the lawn. After a minute of spying, the gooseling shook his tail feathers and waddled outside. "Hello, my name is Brightbill." The squirrel froze. Then she slowly turned around, and then she started to talk. "Hi, Brightbill. My name is Chit Chat, and I'm a 12-and-a-half-week-old squirrel. And I'm new around here, and your home is really big and round, and I don't understand why smoke sometimes comes out of it." Reader, I'm not quite sure how Chit Chat got enough air into her lungs to go on like that. And I'm not quite sure how Brightbill had the patience to listen. But he stood there and politely nodded as Chit Chat rambled on and on and on. "And sometimes I see you waddling behind your funny-looking mother, and you seem so nice that I thought I'd come down and introduce myself. But now I'm nervous and I'm talking too much, and my name is Chit Chat. I think I said that already." There was a pleasant silence. Brightbill stood on one foot for a moment. Then the gooseling took a deep breath and said, "It's very nice to meet you, Chit Chat. I don't think you talk too much. I think you talk just enough, and I like you, so let's be friends." A big smile appeared on the squirrel's tiny face. For once, Chit Chat was speechless. Chapter 38, The New Friendship. Chit Chat wasn't speechless for long. She'd already been alive for a whole 12-and-a-half weeks, and she wanted to tell Brightbill about every exciting thing and every boring thing that had ever happened to her. And so, as the new friends played and explored and ate together, the squirrel shared her stories. "I was born on the other side of the hill, and then last week I decided I was ready to build my first dray, which is what you call a squirrel's nest, and now I live in that tree with the weird bump in its trunk," she said while the two of them kicked pebbles into the pond. "One time, a weasel chased me through the treetops until he missed a branch and fell all the way down and crashed into a bush and walked away all wobbly, and he never bothered me again," she said while the two of them were crawling through a hollow log. "Ew, gross. I saw you eat that ant one time. I ate a gnat by accident, and I didn't like it at all. I mostly eat acorns and bark and tree buds and sometimes the yummy berries that grow in your garden," she said while the two of them took a snack break. But Chit Chat was as good a listener as she was a talker, and whenever it was Brightbill's turn to speak, she'd keep quiet and hang on his every word. Do you know who enjoyed their conversations most of all? Our robot Roz. The protective mother was never far away, and she felt something like amusement at the silly conversations she overheard, and she felt something like happiness that her son had made such a good friend. Chapter 39, The First Flight. Brightbill has spent his entire life by the pond, and he was becoming very curious about what lay beyond the neighborhood. So one day, his mother said to him, "Let us go for a walk, and I will show you more water than you can possibly imagine." Roz placed the gooseling on her flat shoulder, and the two of them set off across the island. They marched out of the forest, crossed the great meadow, and climbed uphill until they were at the top of the island's western ridge. Before them was a grassy slope that descended all the way to the dark, choppy waves that surrounded the island. "That is a lot of water," said the wide-eyed gooseling. "I'm a good swimmer, but I'm not good enough to swim across that pond." "That is not a pond," said the robot. "That is an ocean. I doubt any bird could swim across an ocean." Waves rolled in from the horizon. Seagulls circled above the shore. A steady breeze blew up the slope. Brightbill's yellow fluff had recently changed over to a coat of silky brown feathers, and he spread his feathery wings into the breeze, and then, "Mama, look!" For the briefest of moments, the wind lifted Brightbill off the ground, but he quickly tripped backwards and thumped into the soft grass. "I was flying," he squeaked. "That was not flying," said Ross, looking back at her upside-down son. "Well, I was almost flying. I'm going to try again." "I have observed many birds in flight," said Ross. "Sometimes they flap their wings quickly, and other times They fly without flapping at all. They spread their wings and soar on the wind. So I was soaring? Said Brightbill. Almost. There I looked at the soaring seagull. It seemed like she is not doing anything, but if you look closer, you will notice that she is making small adjustments with her wings and tail. I think you should try adjusting your wings in the wind, like her. Brightbill hopped onto a rock and opened his wings wide. The wind is pushing me backwards. Change the angles of your wings, said his mother. Let us see what happens when they slice through the air. Brightbill slowly angled his wings downward. The more he turned them, the less the wind pushed them backwards. And just as his wings leveled off, "Mama, look!" he squeaked as his feet left the ground. "I'm soaring! I'm soaring!" He hovered there for a second, rising a little higher than before, and then he sailed backwards onto the soft grass again. The gooseling kept hopping onto the rock and kept riding the wind and kept tumbling onto the grass until he started to find his wings. With each attempt, he floated a little higher and a little longer, and finally Brightbill really did soar. He lifted high into the air and hung there floating. He turned his wings down and felt himself drop. He wiggled his tail feathers and felt himself veering back and forth. "I'm a natural," he squeaked. "You are doing very well," said Ross, "but you need to keep practicing." And so they spent the afternoon practicing up on the ridge. Once Brightbill was comfortable soaring, he tried flapping his wings. He flapped high into the air. He flapped in straight lines. He flapped around and around in circles. A big smile appeared on the gooseling's face. Clearly, Brightbill was designed to fly. "I'm flying, Mama. I'm really flying." "You are flying," said the robot. "Very good." Brightbill was now a real flyer, but all that flying had worn him out. He lowered himself towards the ground and tumbled into the grass one last time. His landing still needs some work. Roz placed Brightbill on her shoulder and headed back to the nest. "I can't believe I can fly now, Mama," said Brightbill in his sleepy voice. I just wish you could fly with me." And then the gooseling's words were replaced by his quiet, steady breathing. Chapter 40, The Ship. Brightbill was a flying fanatic, and his favorite place to fly was up on the grassy ridge. The robot and the gooseling liked to spend afternoons up there, working on the finer points of flying. And it was on one such afternoon that they noticed something mysterious far out at sea. Brightbill spiraled down to his mother, flopped onto the grass, and pointed to the horizon. "Mama, what is that thing?" Roz's computer brain found the right word. "That is a ship." "What is a ship?" "A ship is a large vessel used for ocean transport." Brightbill's face scrunched up with confusion. "Used by who?" "I do not know." It was the first ship either of them had ever laid eyes on. From that distance, it looked as though it were moving slowly, but it was actually racing through the waves. From that distance, it looked as though it were small, but it was actually one of the largest ships ever built. The robot and the gooseling watched it crawl across the ocean until it finally disappeared to the south. Where had that ship come from? Where was it going? Who was on board? Roz and Brightbill had many questions, but no answers. Chapter 41, The Summer. On clear summer days, Roz and Brightbill and Chit Chat liked to go exploring. They investigated the island's sandy southern point. They marveled at the rainbows that curved up from the waterfall. They surveyed the forest from the branches of tall trees. They met new friendly creatures, and sometimes they met new unfriendly creatures. But the only creatures they had to worry about were the bears. One time, they came upon a bear fishing in the river, and Roz whispered, "You know what to do." Bright Bill flew up and away. Chit Chat scurried home through the treetops, and Roz melted into the landscape as only she could. Later, they met back at the nest and told the neighbors all about their brush with danger. On dreary summer days, they would stay inside. Roz asked Brightbill and Chit Chat about dreaming and about flying and about eating and about all the things they could do that she could not. But the youngsters had too much energy to sit still for very long. They spent one drizzly afternoon kicking acorns across the nest. Chit Chat piled them up, and then Brightbill swung his big foot, and the acorns went flying. The little friends chased the acorns as they bounced and rolled and spun across the floor. Then they made a new pile and kicked them again. Sometimes an acorn would bounce off Roz's body, clang, and everyone would laugh and giggle together. Even Roz laughed. "Ha ha ha," said the robot, trying to act natural. On clear summer evenings, they would sit outside and watch fireflies twinkling around the pond. Then they'd lay back and gaze up at the darkening skies. "That big circle is the moon," said Chit Chat. "And those little lights are called stars. And one time I tried to count them all, but I can only count to 10, so I kept counting to 10 over and over. And I have no idea how many stars there are, but I know there are more than 10. "They are not all stars," said Roz. "Some of them are planets." "What is a planet?" said Chit Chat. "A planet is a celestial body orbiting a star." "What does celestial mean?" "Celestial means something that is in outer space." "What's outer space?" "Outer space is the universe outside the atmosphere of our planet." "What's the universe?" "The universe is everything and everywhere." "Oh, so the universe is our island?" None of them would ever really understand the universe, including Roz. Her computer brain knew only so much. She could talk about the Earth and the sun and the moon and the planets and a few stars, and not much else. The night sky was full of streaking, shimmering, and blinking lights that she simply couldn't identify. Clearly, Roz was not designed to be an astronomer. On dreary summer evenings, Roz and Brightbill would curl up together, just the two of them, and listen to the rain pattering on the roof of the nest. The robot would tell stories of annoying pine cones and terrible storms and camouflaged insects. But the sound of the rain always made Brightbill sleepy, and he'd be out before his mother could ever finish a story. Tune in next Wednesday to see what happens next in the book, The Wild Robot. Bye, reading worms!